My name is Joe Peroni, and this is the Rise Above Project. And today we're going to talk about the mass shooting in Texas. And if I was being honest with you, here's a show that I don't really want to do. Over the last 10 years or so, I've been doing shows, and I remember doing a show on the Sandy Hook mass shooting as well. This is happening all the time, and I'm absolutely getting sick and tired of it. It's actually getting worse. But then again, on the other hand, I feel like my voice needs to be heard and things need to be said. Before I really start the show, some of the things I'm going to say today might offend people. So I'm not going to hold back on this. So if you want to leave now, you can do that. Cool. I'm good with that. If not, stay along for the ride. I'm going to try to go through a bunch of facts. So let's start off with this, the mass shooting in Texas. Number one, this happened at an elementary school. Number two, 19 children, babies basically, were killed. Number three, 2 adults were killed. Number four, people are saying that this is an unimaginable tragedy. I want to know who these people are. You live in the United States. There's a mass shooting here every single day. People are talking about this and nobody does anything about it. It's not unimaginable. I just did a show on this a couple of days ago and I just said it was going to happen. I don't want to be right all the time. Number five, conservative Republicans, they're offering their thoughts and prayers. Again, thank you. It helps a lot. Sure, I'm sure about that. I even heard one of these conservatives saying that the children now are peaceful. They're flying with the angels. Listen, I don't care if you believe in God or not. I don't care if it's provable or not. To try to categorize this as children are now flying with the angels and it's somehow some type of peaceful, great thing, let's speak reality. These children were in fear of their lives for a good reason. They were screaming. They were shot filled with holes. They died in pools of blood. Not flying with the angels. This is disgusting things that we just don't want to look at. These children were murdered. And let's talk about their families as well. They'll never be the same either. I've heard some conservatives, typical. I'm sure there's some liberals out there, but yeah, it's probably too few to mention. They're going to start blaming video games. They're going to blame mental illness. I'm a marriage and family therapist. These people are not. Stop talking about mental illness. You're not a professional. Shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. They're going to blame the pandemic. You guys don't know the difference between causation and correlation. Let's take a little look at this. Another fact. We're about 145 days into the year 2022. There were or are 213 mass shootings in the United States. There's more than one mass shooting in the United States every day. Do you know how many Japan has? 0. No mass shootings. We have 213. I'm just saying Japan so we can kind of stay on the same subject here, but you could take any first world nation and it's about that number. I mean, I know for a fact Italy has 0 as well. And somebody's going to say, oh, they have a smaller population. Got it. Doesn't matter. Take the rest of the population of all of the other first world countries and it doesn't equal to what we have. So let's take a look at these three excuses that some conservatives talk about again. Video games, mental illness, the pandemic. Was there a pandemic in Japan? Yes. I guess your argument goes out the window, right? Are there video games in Japan? Yes. So I guess your argument goes out the window. Do you think there's mental illness in Japan? I would bet that there is. So where's your argument? Why don't you just be quiet and stop saying stupid things that are so easy to correct? But you know what? Just for a second, I'm going to be conservative here. It's mental illness. Yes, it's mental illness. That's what it is. But let's disregard the fact that most people with mental illness end up being victims. They don't end up being the perpetrators. But let's just not look at the facts. I don't want to do that. Let's not be smart today. I'm trying to be conservative. Here's the other thing. 98% of the mass shooters are male. So if you want to believe that mental illness is the #1 cause for mass shootings in the United States, you're going to have to come up and say that it's men who are mentally ill and women are not mentally ill. Are you ready to go there? Because all these people saying that, they don't come up with that part of the equation, right? So let's just say women are healthy, productive people, and men, not all, but a large percentage of them, are mentally ill. Let's go with that, if that's what you want to say. But again, that makes no sense. Moving on to some more facts. In the year 2019, there were 64% of people, when surveyed, wanted stricter gun laws. It's not bad. I mean, it should be 100%, but whatever. Let's go 64%. In the year 2021, 2 years later, 52% of people want stricter gun laws. This means that every single day that there's a mass shooting, more and more people believe that people should have more access to guns. So as the shootings become more and more prevalent and more people die, more and more people are saying we need more guns to continue the process to make it worse. That should be disturbing to you. Again, let's look at Japan. 0 mass shootings. When are we going to look at that? Go America, we're #1. Okay, so let's take a look at another little fact that I put together here. So, as mentioned before, I did a show when I used to do a radio show. And 10 years ago, Sandy Hook happened, where 20 children died, murdered, and 7 adults were murdered. Now, there were many other mass shootings, but I'm just going to pick out these 3 for now. 5 years ago, there was a Las Vegas shooting where 59 people were killed and 500 people were hurt. And 4 years ago was Parkland in Florida, where 17 people were killed and 17 were injured. Do you know what they all have in common? Besides the fact that there were mass shooters, and of course perpetrated by a man. Here's the commonality that I think is really, really sick. Conservatives, or you want to say Republicans, whatever, they deny that it even happened. Again, not all conservatives, but a lot of them, many of them, they actually blamed crisis actors. And they went after some of the survivors. Not of just the shooting, but the parents of the kids who died, they went after them. This is the type of people we have in this country. You know, I don't want to, well, I'll mention one name, like Alex Jones. He's finally getting sued. It's been 10 years, but he has built a multi-million-dollar business and was on the radio doing what he does the same time I did. And he has millions upon millions upon millions of subscribers and fortune and fame. Saying Sandy Hook didn't exist, it didn't happen, there were crisis actors, blah, blah, blah. Same thing in Parkland, same thing in Las Vegas. Listen, I live in Las Vegas. I know doctors and nurses that had to deal with the aftermath of that. I drove past where everybody was lined up on the street to give blood. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, these people are absolutely delusional. Another fact, I'm up on my list, I'm up to number 9. Here's a fact. We actually all believe that there should be less shootings. And that's a good thing. Excellent. Like, there's not too many people out there saying, yeah, we need more mass shootings, right? No one's going to admit to that. So we all want there to be less mass shootings. But here's the issue, and one of the reasons why nothing gets done. Because liberals believe in common sense legislation, and they believe in universal background checks. Okay, sounds fair. Conservatives, or Republicans, they believe that more guns and less gun-free zones equals more safety. You have no evidence to back that up, none, zero. As a matter of fact, it's the other way. But they literally believe, they will sit in front of a camera, you get politicians and whoever, the guy down the street, saying, we need more guns, we need to be armed to the teeth, everybody. And that will make things safer. A good man with a gun. They believe that. Look around the country. Like, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Look at other first world nations. But we don't want to do that because we have this narcissistic attitude that America's the best at everything. Well, how we doing? We suck in this area, for sure. Absolutely. So for today, if you can't beat them, join them, right? So I want to be a conservative here a little bit. And listen, I know this is tough for some conservatives, if you're still with me, because they've done plenty of MRIs and brain scans. And what they found is that liberals tend to have a part of the brain for empathy a lot more than a conservative does. Liberals tend to have a little bit more in the prefrontal cortex, which is logic and reasoning, whereas conservatives have more of a dominant reptilian brain with the amygdala, which is all about fear and just reacting and having responses. And further empirical evidence indicates that if you're a conservative, you're working with about anywhere between 3 to 10 less IQ points. So I'm going to try to say this slow and try to make you understand that more guns do not equal more safety, okay? And if you need to watch this a couple of times to understand it better, I'm all for it, okay? Because I'm empathetic towards people that don't have a lot of empathy because they're born that way or their IQ's a little bit less. I'm very empathetic to that, so I'll talk slower if I need to. But less kids need to die. I think we can agree with that. But for fun, let me just go along with the conservative route. More guns. Okay. So when you're 16, let's say, and if you're an American citizen, why don't we just arm every American citizen who's 16 years old with an automatic weapon? If it's safety that we're looking for, let's do it. Let's arm every single citizen in America with at least one gun. We pay enough in taxes, right? So part of their, when they get their taxes back at the end of the year, hand them an assault rifle. It's no problem, because again, the crime should definitely go down that way. I don't think we should have a problem with that. I think when we buy cars and trucks, instead of having options about, if we want power windows or whatever, we should have the option to mount a machine gun on every single car and every single truck that we buy. And if some company doesn't want to do it, well, that's on them. But the other companies are going to become more popular, right? Because everybody would want to mount a machine gun on their car. Why? Because it would make your family much safer. That makes sense. So if you're 16, listen, you're going to high school. I think you should be able to be armed. Listen, you need an automatic weapon. So every single child that goes to high school should, bring their laptop, whatever the heck they bring, a pen, pencil, some paper, whatever, and don't forget your AR-15. I think that would be much safer in these schools, don't you think? I mean, let's just go down that route. If you're gonna do it and it works, then let's just do it. We'll arm everybody. Go to churches, and just make sure you've got your gun sitting right there, because that's what Jesus would want. It's perfect. I think it's a great idea. Part of the problem with that is though that the average person in the United States can get a hold of guns that police don't have. So we have a little bit of a problem here. So either we're going to tone it down on what weapons we can get as citizens, or we're going to have to amp up the police, because conservatives love men in uniform. I mean, they hate gays, homosexuals, they hate that. But they always go really crazy for a man in uniform, though. They love firemen, they love the police, they love the military. Oh, man in uniform, they'll do anything for it. Okay, if you love the men and women in blue, you're going to want to have them to have AR-15s as well. And I don't think you should just have cars. Why not a tank? Because if everybody in a neighborhood is stacked with automatic weapons, they can drive by in a car. You need a bulletproof type of vehicle, and maybe a couple of hand grenades too, so you can hit people at distance. This is important. So listen, if we're going to do this, we need to be all in. I think that makes sense. My throat's been killing me all week, so let's have a little drink here. Greatest band ever, The Who. But it's really hard for me to be a conservative and believe all that. You know why? Because it's not true. Let's look at some empirical evidence, because there is empirical evidence. Number one, concealing a gun creates 15% more violent crime. Why is that? Because the person concealing a weapon, like Jethro and Jim Bob, all of a sudden think they look like that. They all of a sudden have become more manly. They think that they can not verbalize correctly, and they become a little bit more aggressive. So again, knowing you have a weapon on you makes you think you have a lot more spine than you actually have, and they have a tendency to use it more. That's number one. Number two, seeing a gun creates more aggression and hypervigilance in other people. So again, these people that are open carrying, which happened to me not so long ago, all of a sudden he thinks he's a tough guy and pulls out, I got my gun. You know what that made me do? It made me close the gap on him. So he didn't have the time to reach, because if he's 10 feet away, I have no way. And I can't run away either, because I can't outrun a bullet. So when I see somebody like that being a little aggressive, I actually step up closer, because that's what I need to do. If I'm going to die, it's not going to be getting shot in my back running away from some guy, right? And it makes sense too. Think about this. So you have a lot of conservatives making fun of, say, liberals, right? So make believe you're in Seattle, right? You're at the first Starbucks, and you're there, and your manliness isn't like dependent upon whether you have black coffee or a latte. Maybe you just want to have a latte. So you sit down and you see some guy walking in with a gun strapped to him. Does your nice afternoon with your partner, sitting, talking about life, drinking a little coffee, does it get a little bit more disturbed? It does for me. Why is somebody randomly walking into a Starbucks with a gun strapped to them? What war are we in? Other than the war in his head, and I say his for a reason, again, because it's 98% men doing this. So if you're an angry guy and you're carrying a gun, I'm going to get more aggressive or more hypervigilant. I'm going to have my eye on you. And you know what? You're going to ruin my day a little. Because if I'm there with my girlfriend, now I have to protect me and her, right? So now I got to go looking at you because I don't know why you have a gun. And I'm not the only one, everybody does that, right? So again, empirical evidence says that it actually raises the tension, raises the aggression level of everybody just by seeing somebody with a gun. Okay? Number 3, let's talk about gun protection, because typically, and it kind of makes sense, right? Like somebody said, well, why would you even want to have a gun? You say, well, for protection. Okay, I can't argue with that, right? Like if I'm unarmed and you're armed, I'm in a lot of trouble. So, of course, I get it, gun protection. But there's evidence. Let's look at it. So the data clearly says for every justifiable self-defense shooting, there are 4 unintentional shootings. There are 7 criminal assaults or killings. Again, for every justifiable self-defense shooting, there are 11 suicides. The numbers are not in your favor. If you bring a gun into your house, you're much, much more likely to use that gun on yourself. And again, these are men. So what is the suicide rate of men? Let's think. That's right, 4 times the rate of women. Okay, there's a correlation there, right? So here's your answer. Gun equals protection. However, less than 1% of people successfully use a firearm in self-defense. Again, typically it's unintentional. That unintentional killing, probably one of your kids. Probably. 7 criminal assaults and killings, again, and you're much, much more likely to shoot yourself with that gun than you are to play Superman and protect the household. that rarely, if ever happens. I don't know if I've ever talked to anybody that's happened to. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. So I hope you found this show valuable to you. My name is Joe Peroni. This is the Rise Above Project. And I'm crossing my fingers that I do not have to do another show about mass shootings again. But I know better. Please subscribe and tell a friend. Thank you.